Okay, well, hello everyone. This is John Dupuy, CEO of iAwake Technologies, and I have the real joy and pleasure of being with my good friend Jonathan Robinson. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, John. Good to be with you.
And today we're gonna explore and talk about our latest iAwake release, and it is called Shortcuts to Awakening. And I think it's a wonderful title, and I'll get in more why I think it's so appropriate. When I first heard it, I went, I don't know how much poetry it has, but it certainly, I think, is very accurate. And let me just say, you created a just incredible tool. In our iAwake family of users, people that actually practice with iAwake, there may be people that are very advanced meditators, and when they say shortcuts to awakening, they'll know exactly what you're talking about when you say awakening, but there may be a lot of us out there that don't quite know exactly what that is, and it's always a fascinating question, so I'd like to pose it to you. What are you talking about when you say awakening?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's important to define terms. That way we can all get clear as to what the target is. So there's a lot of ways to define awakening. I like to define it as a very specific experience. It's not, where you're enlightened forever. It's more of experience where you let go of your sense of ego, of your separate sense of self, and you are just there, where you are taking in your sense impressions. It's like you just arrived there for the first time and you're seeing out your eyes for the first time, where there's nothing but now going on. And you're less identified or not identified with any ego or anything other than now, and just being right here, looking out your senses. And the other side of that equation is when you're looking out into this three-dimensional world that your senses show, that you're also connected to something. That something could be called peace or love or a higher power. It's an emptiness that's very full.
That's exact.
And that's one way of describing it. Obviously, there's a lot of ways, but in some of the tracks, we actually go into describing it, because like a erotic novel, if you describe what awakening is, it actually helps to bring you into that state.
That's true.
And it's a really beautiful way of like opening into this expanded, peaceful, loving, connected, present reality that's always there.
Beautiful. And as Abraham Maslow said, that these experiences of awakening, or he called them peak experiences, are absolutely a necessity to be a healthy, fully actualized human being. Well, it's if we don't get this, and that expansion, that I'm not just little John, or I'm not just little Jonathan, but lo and behold, I'm pure awareness itself, and it expands out into infinity and includes all things, and that is my true nature and my true being. That was, my original faith before the Big Bang, or before my parents were born, or however you want to phrase that. And when you get in touch with that, like you're saying, it's not this existential emptiness or dullness, but it's this awakeness, it's aliveness, and the qualities of that are joy, peace, compassion, acceptance, even responsibility. There's just an extraordinary shift in things, and the more often we have access to that awakening, the more stabilized that awareness becomes in our individual day-to-day encounters with the rest of the world that we deal with, and individuals and ourselves, and it just changes the whole story.
Yeah. And the great thing is that we don't have to create this state. It's our natural state. It's what happens if we relax at a very fundamental level. That's what is. And we are always like resisting it. So really the tracks are a way of letting go of everything that's in the way of our natural state.
Yes, and you very effectively tease that out in these tracks. You just take us away from our normal, monkey mind thoughts, identified with our stuff and our stories and our issues, and it's just like, oh, there, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
hi, welcome
You
home.
know, I'm like a kid in a toy store. I have this podcast called Awareness Explorers, and people can get it on iTunes or whatever. And in that podcast, we explore all these different methods in detail, because I'm kind of like a mechanic that likes to get into the specifics of methods and tease them out so that we can get better at these skills. Because learning how to let go of negative emotions and get into our natural state is a skill. Knowing how to let go of our thinking mind, of always worrying and of always doing things, is a skill. And if people are interested in this stuff, that these tracks will definitely help them, or they can also learn more at the Awareness Explorers podcast.
Yeah, I also had when I was meditating this morning, getting ready to do this conversation, I had a vision of you as Mercury, the messenger of the gods, and really do that quite well. I mean, if you've read any of Jonathan's prior works and books, etc., you're always out there exploring everything that's available and bringing it back to us and giving it to us in a form that we can take these messages from the gods, if you will, and understand it and absorb it and use it in our own lives. And it's an incredibly noble and fun and very cool task that you've been given, and you seem to be doing really well.
Well, thank you. I'm basically selfish and try and do this for myself, and then I see it, wow, it applies to other people as well.
Yeah, well, then that's the awakening thing. Oh, the self. What is the self? Oh my God, it's everything and everyone, right?
Yeah, there's just one of us here in drag.
There you go. It is all God in drag, and you are it. I think everyone would kind of like to know what qualifies you, Jonathan Robinson, to create a shortcut to awakening. A little bit about your background and what you do in the world.
Sure. Well, going way back, I had a miserable childhood, which helped me to get into self-help and meditation and hypnosis at the ripe old age of 11. And from there, I was really trying to heal myself and focused on what are the best technologies, the best methods for getting out of depression, getting out of fear and into happiness. And eventually that led me to write books on what are the best methods for happiness, communication, and awakening, which led to being on Oprah a bunch in the 90s and early 2000s. So I saw that I was turning my laziness of wanting quick, simple methods into a superpower, and that other people wanted the same stuff. And I get to speak to a lot of people now, John, in seminars. So I'm always testing stuff to see what works and what doesn't, both on me and other people. And I get to see that, wow, these guided meditations really seem to impact people. And that's really what qualifies. It's really a matter of practical things that really seem to work for people.
And you're also a very prolific writer, and you write books like I write chapters. So I'm really kind of in awe of I'm writing another book now, and it's kind of in awe of your capacity to keep not cranking out, but producing these really great books, and they're bestsellers, and people love them, and they're just very useful.
Well, thank you. As I said, I'm very practically minded. I found that, I'm not able to do things that take a lot of discipline, and I think a lot of people are that way. So I try to give people things that really take almost no effort, yet can produce a result. And, TV's like that. We figured out a way to get 600 channels of entertainment by just moving your thumb a quarter of an inch. Well, I want to do the same thing with awakening and happiness. With very little effort, a person can have a pretty sizable result, especially in the area of awakening, because, traditionally people have said you have to go into a monastery, which I've done, and you have to meditate long hours. And I find that really quality is more important than quantity. So I have tried to come up with the best inner technologies for awakening, partly because that's what I want. And then I'm thinking other people might want that as well.
Yeah, and of course, our lives are so busy. So if we have tools that are focused and really good and take less time, obviously that's a really good thing. And that's, of course, that's one of the ideas behind iAwake. We were going to, create these tracks that take you into these deep brainwave states so that you don't have to spend, years and years in an ashram or a monastery or, hooked up to some, guru who, that's problematic also. But so we really have the best of both worlds. We have these meditations plus the powerful entrainment, the sounds of the iAwake tracks underneath it. So it takes you down into these deep brainwave states, and then you're doing this guided stuff. And let me say this about that. I've been like meditating at least 13 years now at, on average an hour a day using this technology. And I have gained a lot of access into non-dual states and the awakening and the awareness that you talk about. But it took me many years to get to the place that you are, even with these tools that you're kind of bringing people into almost immediately. And
yeah,
and the more we use them, I mean, more that use these particular tracks, the more second nature it's going to be. And the more we're trained into this type of entrainment and this type of identifying with pure awareness and pure consciousness, which is one of the main goals of deep a contemplative meditation. So, and even if you're advanced meditator, as I fancy myself to be, is, it's like in sports, football coaches, you got to focus on the fundamentals, and it's really like that in meditation. I know all this stuff, I know it well, but just kind of having it come from your angle and be right there just immediately helped me get into these deep, still states of awareness. And I was just amazed at how good it is. And I'm so happy to have this as a part of iAwake's ever-growing library of transformational tools. It's just a really, really well done, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm excited. The best of my stuff with the best of your stuff creates some pretty good stuff.
Right. Like Lennon and McCartney, right?
Exactly. We're I think there's 4 tracks on this thing. So we're gaining at it from different angles, and you're bound to find something that really, really resonates intensely with you. So that's my hope, is that people listen to them and they find something that, wow, that's like a major drug tripper's mystical experience when I listen to that track. Having the guided meditations helps people to know how to get there also after they listen to it, because they're very specific, unusual guided meditations. They're not your average just, relax. They have some really interesting things to them that get people into a place of pure awareness. And I think pure awareness is the gold standard of spirituality. I've been with a lot of teachers, and almost all of them, they say the key is how much you can be in pure awareness, because that is the doorway or the portal to everything beyond ego. And if you can get there quickly, easily, consistently, and stay there for a period of time, things in your life and in your brain just change all by themselves.
Yeah, and I would also say it's a doorway into a healthy relationship with your ego, because we're not going to be doing away with that anytime soon. But when you come into that relationship that you realize you're something beyond ego, then you can go back and the cleanup, dealing with the shadow and doing all the psychological work that's also necessary in this journey becomes actually doable and much more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very excited to listen to them for myself, because they make getting to a place of total stillness and pure awareness much easier than some meditation techniques I use. So that's a good sign that's going to be good for other people as well.
And had you been using these same techniques in guiding meditations in the workshops and the teaching and the talks that you do?
Yeah, but without the iAwake tracks in the back, which definitely add a certain oomph to it.
Sure.
But when I'm speaking to corporate America, I might be speaking to 500 people. I'm trying to get the entire audience into a state of awakeness. And so I get to see what works and what doesn't, even for people who haven't meditated before. So that's where the basis of these guided meditations came from. And I think different things work for different people, but in general, we have 4 different tracks there. People find that they have their favorites, and they also find that with some of these, I have really post-hypnotic suggestions that if they do something, it will immediately bring them to stillness outside of listening to the tape, so that they can use it in their daily life. Just by as little as like rubbing their thumb and finger together, they can get to a place of stillness because it's been anchored into them from the audio.
Yeah, and I think people's favorites may change over time. Like you really feel called to work with one particular track and one particular guided meditation, and then you'll move on and you'll work with the other one. I really enjoy how you kind of set this up in a couple of the tracks, and then you just let people give spaciousness, and then you give little reminders, things that just kind of keep deepening and expanding the experience.
Yeah, yeah. I think we need new technologies like this. The world's getting more complex, more stressful. We have iPhones that are great technology because they're quick, easy, they're reliable. We need the same thing to happen with awakening so that the masses and so that we can spend more time in these more expanded states of consciousness, because without that, the world is just so stressful nowadays that we can get lost in all the busyness, and that would be unfortunate.
And I think we live in a time now because of the technologies and because of the access to all the great wisdom traditions and all the teachings that, prior to this new technological awakening age that we're in, it seemed like maybe there were 3 or 4 individuals at any given time that would be awake, and the rest of us would come and, kind of hang on their coattails and try to get a vibe from them so we could kind of at least experience it temporarily. But now I think this is really, like you said, it's moving out into the greater numbers of people, and we need so many people to awake at this point. And awakening really is the beginning of a whole nother journey. It's not the end of all things, but it's just a start. It's a doorway into where we need to get to in order to really grapple with the evolutionary challenges that are going on in our human family and, of course, the whole world around us right now. So this is a very positive occurrence. And, we may think there's a lot of really negative things going on in the world, but there's actually some really, really positive things. And I think the most positive thing that we can do as individuals is to take responsibility for our own awakening. That I'm writing about in my current book. It's waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up. We need to do all of that, but it's simultaneously, actually. But this is just I'm just really pleased and I'm really proud to have a part in getting this out to the world. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. And the more you do it, the more momentum it has and the easier it is, because if you only experience a higher state of consciousness once a week or once a year, you don't get a flavor of it. But by listening to these CDs, you get it, a flavor that's really there and makes it easier the next time. So I'm really excited that people will be able to have expanded states without drugs, without going to a guru, in the privacy of their own home when they want. And I think that's the basis of a whole new way of being in the world.
Awesome. Anything else you'd like to say that you haven't said, or to close this out?
Well, I think there's nothing more important than love, peace, and awakening. So anything you can do to move in that direction is good. I've noticed that different things work for different people. That's why I have the 4 tracks on there. But I think, I know a lot of different meditation techniques, gurus, things like that. I wanted to get this for me because I thought it was the best stuff that would help me to be there as easy as possible. And I think it's really exciting that this product exists now. And I'm really looking forward to what effect it has on people and hearing what people have to say when they listen to it.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, thank you very much. And as always, it's a pleasure, and good job, and deep bow.